It all started over a cup of coffee. When Joe and Stephanie Farrell moved to Youngsville, there just wasn't anywhere to buy a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning. They found whenever they wanted to go somewhere to eat or visit with friends, they had to drive to Raleigh or Wake Forest. But they loved how quaint Youngsville was at the time and saw an opportunity to bring things people wanted to downtown. They saw how popular Sharon's Cafe was and how cramped they were for space at the old location. So they bought the building across the street and moved them over, making way for them to open a coffee bar. From that first building, they moved over to the ice cream shop and the yacht club. That whole area with the courtyard has become a central gathering place for people to sit under the trees and shade and watch their kids run around and play. The Victorian house was a challenge to buy, but Joe thought it was a great opportunity for a restaurant or a wedding venue. The prior owner had accumulated several generations of stuff, like we all do, so Joe made them an offer to not only buy the house, but buy everything in it. Joe still laughs about going into the house after the closing and finding the seller even left his toothbrush in the sink. Finally, the group purchased the house across from the post office and started a massive renovation, which Joe says cost more than tearing down the house and building it back from scratch. That is what makes everything he did in Youngsville so special. The properties that he purchased and later sold look just like they did when they were first built. He built a community, but more importantly, he preserved our history while providing a bright future. Now, let's take a look at Franklinton. Just a few short years ago, a drive or a walk through parts of Franklinton could be, well, depressing. Unfortunately, the town was having a slow going out of business sale, one business at a time. Franklinton was an aging community. There were too many boarded up businesses and abandoned buildings. There was a future in Franklinton, but someone needed to see past the gray planks and warped plywood. Joe had seen it many times. But Joe had a vision. And with a supportive town, Joe began to renovate and build his vision. Everything you see new and vibrant in downtown Franklinton is due primarily to Joe and his team, with Stephen Hayes and Jim Anthony. When we listened to his story of how it all began, it was like Joe was planning the downtown as its own ecosystem. Now think about that. He knew the town needed a signature venue that would draw people into downtown. He thought the town needed a pizza place, so that's how the Owl's Roost came about serving pizza. He knew the town needed a Mexican restaurant like Toro's. And of course, he finally built that coffee shop that he and Stephanie were looking for, and at the most iconic corner in Franklinton. If you walk up and down Main Street and Mason Street, then you will see small businesses everywhere. Insurance agencies, clothing stores, hair salons, health food stores, building contractors, a catering service, and yes, even a slammer. Word is we might even see a food bank, a boutique hotel, and some apartments. It is one thing to build a building, but it's something altogether different when you set about to build a community. We really believe Joe did not do this just to see how much money he could make. He did it because it was what people needed. They needed a rich history and a bright future. It would be very hard to find a better candidate for this year's Chairman's Excellence Award than Joe Farrell. He gave our history a bright future.